You wrote this: I lost friends in Iraq to an illegal war. Young working-class kids should not pay the ultimate price for regime change in a war that hasn't been explained or justified to the American people. We can support the democracy movement and the Iranian people without sending our troops to die. I was texting with a few different veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars today, and it's been hitting people very hard, just at an emotional level, to watch this happen. And it seems like it is for you as well.
Yeah, look, well, look, I'm still living with the war. I still talk to my best friend's kids from the war, and it just frustrates me that we didn't learn the lessons from 2003. We learned so much. We have so many men and women that suffered from what happened there, and so many policymakers that saw what happened and could actually learn from it and say, this is not the way we have to go. Like, I'm not even saying Iran is a good actor in all of this. There are so many ways we could have done this without rushing to war. And look, 6 people are dead. I hope that's all it is. But it could be worse. We're seeing them now attacking embassies, Iran attacking embassies. They're also attacking civilians. I feel sorry also for the Israelis, for the Saudis, the Qataris. All these civilians are being caught up in random bombings. We have Iranians, for example, that school that we don't know what happened exactly, but there's a casualty right there. There's a lot of things we could have done, and there was just such a rush to war. And we're all paying for this. We're all paying for this, whether it's we're cutting Medicaid to pay for those bombs, we're losing a whole attention, the fact that this country right now is just suffering and trying to get anything to just breathe a little so they could just pay for their everyday goods, food, insurance, whatever the hell it is. And what are our country leaders doing? They're following Netanyahu, who has literally told us, he just told it on TV, that he's been trying to do this for 47 years. I know. I suffered the first attempt at this in 2005. And now America is suffering again because of it. There's a lot of ways that we could be supportive of Israel. There's a lot of ways that we could defend Israel's existence, its sovereignty. I'm 100% for that. But we don't need to go to war for them, especially when it's a dumb war.
As we mentioned, a briefing is underway right now on Capitol Hill, where top committee members are hearing from the Trump administration on Donald Trump's war with Iran. Donald Trump is saying publicly that it could last 4 or 5 weeks, that he could end it in 1 to 3 days, or it could last, if necessary, quote, far longer than that, end quote. Today, Donald Trump is sending more U.S. forces into the region in case it is one of those longer-term scenarios. He's not ruling out putting United States troops on the ground in Iran. Donald Trump is also warning that more United States service members will likely be killed. Already 6 have died within this hour, with 5 others seriously wounded. Today, U.S. troops continue to conduct large-scale combat operations, having already hit with Israel more than 2,000 targets, according to the New York Times. Acts of war, lawmakers say, by Donald Trump, all taking place without congressional authorization. Joining us at the table, Democratic Congressman Jason Crow of California. He's a member of the Armed Services and Intelligence Committees. He also served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. I think one of the first conversations I had with you was after your combat training sort of instinctively led you to protect your colleagues on January 6th.
Yeah.
I think you joined our breaking coverage as that was happening. And I remember thinking of, well, that's all right, that if we had another war in our lifetimes, Trump wouldn't start it, because he's run for president 3 times. And for all his incoherence on all manner of issues, the Epstein, the tariffs, the economy, no new wars was central, was, exactly who he was. It's how he wins the Republican primary in 15 and 16. And I wonder if any part of you, even though you didn't support him, was shocked or felt betrayed on behalf of his coalition.
Nicole, what Donald Trump realized during his campaign, and why he campaigned as an isolationist and he campaigned about ending endless wars, is because he realized that the anger and the resentment of 20-plus years of conflict, the $3 trillion+ spent, the 6,500 service members who died, the years of credibility and lost opportunity, he realized that deep anger and resentment that I share, actually. And he said, I'm going to stop this cycle. Right? And of course, now he has broken that very promise that he campaigned on. But that exists now, right? And I now am sitting here saying, what is working class America getting out of this, right? It is true that Iran is a terrorist regime. It is true that the Ayatollah was a bad person and an evil person. That is all true. But the analysis begins with that. It doesn't end with that, right? Because what was also true is that Saddam Hussein was a bad person. What is also true is that the Taliban is bad. And we saw how that turned out. So the analysis has to now happen after the fact about whether this is the right thing to do, what we need to do to protect our service members, and Congress needs to be put in the driver's seat.
What is it like right now for men and women of the military and their families to have the administration, the commander-in-chief, offering multiple explanations, both for the rationale and the timeline? Well,
I was just really struck by the video that Donald Trump put out on Friday night when he announced the start of this. He did it at Mar-a-Lago in front of the curtains. You know, we've seen this before, those black curtains. And he talked about the costs of war. He talked about the fact that service members were going to die. He said that that's just something that's going to have to happen. Then he talked tough and he banged his chest like elites in Washington often do. Then he literally walked behind the curtains to his private club. And
it's conventional arsenal. So it can't be used as an umbrella as Iran pursues its nuclear ambitions. What's your reading of that?
Well, Wolf, I was a little confused by some of what Mr. Hegseth said. First of all, the president himself, in his taped statement on Saturday morning announcing the opening of this, invited the Iranian people to hang back until the military action was over and then rise up against their government. That sounded like regime change to me, and not only that, but encouraging the Iranian people to bring it about. So when Secretary Hegseth said today that a goal was not regime change, I was a little confused. Now, my colleague, one of my colleagues spoke to President Trump yesterday afternoon, and we wrote a story about this. And he laid out three different scenarios, which were somewhat contradictory. One of them was that everybody rises up. A second one was that he would get to sort of pick some leadership the way he did in Venezuela. And then he had a third option, which was that a sort of more compliant Iranian government emerged. And it's not clear to us right now which one of those he's pursuing, but obviously each one would require very different strategies.
Yeah, important point. General Clark, this conflict clearly is expanding right now with Hezbollah in Lebanon launching rockets into Israel, and Israel now conducting airstrikes and not ruling out a ground operation against Hezbollah in Lebanon. What needs to happen to keep all of this from spinning into an overall regional war?
I think it's dependent on the rate at which the United States forces can degrade the ability of the Iranians to strike back in the Gulf, and simultaneously the ability of the Israelis to repress and go after Hezbollah. It is a contest of arms right now. The Iranian leadership is not ready to throw in the towel, obviously, and so it's going to have to be a matter of the destruction of their means to resist. And the Secretary of War said, General Kane said, we have air superiority in the region. That's good. We need air supremacy. We need to be able to loiter overhead and watch every single square kilometer near a launch site and watch those missiles roll out and take them out before they could be launched. We don't know what the size of the remaining Iranian inventory is, maybe several thousand still, especially short range. It's clearly in Iran's strategy to cause maximum chaos in an effort to force the United States to halt the operation. And so this is a test of arms. And Admiral Cooper has got to be able to turn those sorties, load the aircraft, get them in action. He's got to find the targets that are significant. And Wolf, one of the problems you always have in an air campaign, it always starts out looking great, because you pre-plan the most significant targets, or at least what you think is the most significant. But as it goes on day after day, you've got to continue to generate new targets for those aircraft. When we were in Kosovo in 1999, target generation was a big problem. We ended up with 1,000 aircraft, and we were really scrambling to find useful targets. So if this were to go on for several weeks, that's going to be a real challenge for us, despite the fact we've spent 30 years looking at Iran. Where are the targets that the aircraft striking can make the greatest strategic impact on the Iranian government?
And very
That's the
quickly,
challenge.
General Clark, before I let you go, yesterday the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, the Army announced they were mobilizing, activating 100,000 reservists to begin active duty right now. Is that designed for some sort of ground assault against Hezbollah in Lebanon? Or is it possible the Israelis are actually thinking of deploying ground forces into Iran?
I'd be surprised if they were going into Iran. We could get them there. If we got a landing site, we could move people in by our own air transport. They wouldn't have to go around through the canal or something like this. But 100,000 is not enough.
Critics argue that Donald Trump's war is illegal and that it puts ordinary people, the 99%, at risk in both the United States and Iran. But see, it's not billionaires or Wall Street elites who face the danger. It's regular families on both sides of the conflict. In the early stages alone, lives have already been lost. Americans have died. Iranians, including innocent civilians and children, have also been killed in strikes carried out by US forces. There have even been reports of friendly fire incidents. As Commander-in-Chief, Trump is ultimately responsible for military decisions. In one reported incident, US aircraft were mistakenly targeted, and while early coverage, including reporting from the BBC, indicated that the pilots safely ejected and survived, the situation highlighted how quickly things can spiral, even without confirmed fatalities. In that case, critics argued the risk to American troops was real. Beyond direct casualties, the broader concern is how pays the cost of escalation. American service members stationed near Iran faced heightened danger. Civilians in Iran danger service members and risks the life of civilians on all sides.